India and China are moving closer than ever before, and this will surely make Donald Trump fiercely oppose it. The reason is very clear: if the two Asian powers join hands, Trump's entire strategy to contain China will collapse. This is not just a regional shift, but also an event that could shake the global order, raising big questions about the political legacy Trump always prides himself on. So why would a friendship between India and China make Trump so worried? Trump built a tariff wall for 4 years to block China. But could just one handshake in Beijing pierce through that wall? After 7 years, the Prime Minister of India has returned to China to attend the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit. This is not just an ordinary diplomatic trip, but also an important signal showing a shift in New Delhi's foreign policy. For many years, India-China relations have been overshadowed by border tensions, especially after the Gawan clash in 2020, as well as strategic competition in South Asia. The fact that India's leader directly participates in a forum in Beijing can be understood as an effort to affirm that New Delhi is ready for dialogue and does not want to be locked in endless confrontation. In reality, India is gradually adjusting its foreign policy. If in the past New Delhi was often seen as a natural partner of the West in containing China's rise, now India has chosen the Act East path. This policy does not stop at expanding ties with regional countries, but also shows the determination to escape excessive dependence on the United States and Europe. The message is clear: India wants to be seen as an independent power, shaping its own strategy instead of becoming a tool in another superpower's chessboard. One of the direct reasons leading to this shift is the attitude of the United States, especially under President Donald Trump. During his time in office, instead of strengthening alliances, Washington repeatedly imposed high tariffs on Indian goods and introduced trade policies with strong pressure. For Trump, America first has always been the priority, making even allies suffer pressure if they go against U.S. interests. For India, this is a lesson that the future cannot be placed entirely in the hands of the West. That is why New Delhi is expanding cooperation with China and other Asian countries as a diplomatic way out to balance the global game. India's new foreign policy is not only an effort to assert independent status, but also a practical response to U.S. pressure. So exactly why does such a move make Donald Trump so uncomfortable? If India and China truly move closer, this will be a huge challenge for Trump's Asia strategy. In his plan, Washington always considered New Delhi as a key pillar to balance Beijing's influence. When launching the free and open Indo-Pacific strategy in 2017, the US placed India at the center while putting it into the Quad group with Japan, Australia, and the United States, described as a NATO version for Asia. If the two big economies join hands, the strategic balance in the region could be overturned, making all of Washington's efforts fall into a void. Going against the anti-China image that Trump carefully built is also something he cannot accept. In his first term, Trump started a trade war, imposed 25% tariffs on more than $370 billion of Chinese goods, banned Huawei from US technology, and restricted semiconductor access. This was his political brand, a tough leader against Beijing. But if India, once seen as America's natural ally, openly cooperates with China, then the message Trump has isolated China will collapse. That would threaten the political reputation he once built. The economic aspect makes Trump even more worried. After years of over-reliance on China, the US wanted to shift supply chains to India. Huge corporations like Apple, Foxconn, and Samsung invested heavily in New Delhi, with Apple alone producing nearly 14% of all iPhones worldwide in India by 2024. If India and China cooperate instead of competing, they could coordinate to control strategic sectors like pharmaceuticals, renewable energy hardware, and electric vehicles. At that point, the US would not only lose an alternative partner to China, but also face a giant manufacturing bloc powerful enough to manipulate prices and global markets. On the level of global power, an India-China alliance would truly challenge America's status. India's nominal GDP in 2024 reached about 3.7 trillion US dollars, while China reached about 18 trillion US dollars. Combined, the two economies account for nearly 20% of total global GDP. Their population exceeds 2.8 billion people, which is about 1/3 of the world's total. With that scale, if they coordinate in organizations like BRICS or the United Nations, India and China will become a giant bargaining bloc, strong enough to weaken any Western initiative. For Trump, who always insists the US must be number one, this is the most dangerous scenario. More importantly, this is a direct blow to Trump's personal image. In an August 2020 speech, he declared, "I am the only one who forced China to pay the price." But if Beijing gains a strategic ally in New Delhi, that claim becomes a joke. Instead of being isolated, China would have a new support, and this would turn the legacy Trump wanted to leave into a bitter failure. For a politician who always puts honor and prestige first, this is not just a diplomatic defeat, but a denial of his long-term ambition. While Washington shows concern, New Delhi sees potential for cooperation with Beijing. So what reasons could make India and China become closer partners? If India truly leans toward China, Trump will certainly not just respond with words. He already has a whole set of policy tools he used in his previous term and can fully apply them again. First, on trade, Trump once imposed 25% tariffs on steel and 10% on aluminum imports from India in 2018 and 2019 under Section 232, even repeatedly criticizing India's high import tax on Harley-Davidson motorcycles. That shows a tariff storm could fully return if New Delhi moves closer to Beijing. Second, on trade preferences in June 2019, he removed India from the generalized system of preferences, making more than $5 billion of Indian goods lose duty-free privilege. This is a card Trump could use again to force India to pick a side. Third, in security, it was Trump who upgraded Quad in 2017 and pushed the Malabar drills. But if India gets too close to China, he could cut intelligence sharing or restrict defense cooperation, making New Delhi clearly see the price of distancing Washington. Fourth, in technology and investment, Trump once tightened chip AI and 5G transfer with China and delayed some defense deals with India, such as the Guardian UAV. Therefore, in the new scenario, he could block Apple, Boeing, or Lockheed from expanding production in India, holding back the Make in India ambition. Finally, on the multilateral front, Trump has never hesitated to pressure even allies like the EU, South Korea, and Japan. So with India, he could fully use the WTO, IMF, or trade agreements to brand India as untrustworthy if it goes too far with Beijing. In other words, Trump has enough leverage from tariffs, preferences, defense, technology, to multilateral diplomacy, and all of them were truly used during his 2017 to 2021 term. Therefore, if India-China truly shake hands, a policy fury from Trump could explode once again. First, complementary trade. In 2024, bilateral trade reached $138 billion with India, importing more than $120 billion from China. India is strong in services and pharmaceuticals, while China is the world's factory. If combined wisely, both sides could reshape global supply chains and reduce dependence on the West. Second, resolving border disputes to save defense spending. India spends $78.4 billion on defense, while China spends $249 billion. A large portion of these budgets is locked by Himalayan tensions. If eased, both could shift resources to education, science, and technology, fields that directly serve long-term development. Third, resisting Western influence together. Both carry historical wounds. China calls it the century of humiliation, while India spent nearly 200 years under British colonial rule. Cooperation would help them strengthen their voice in BRICS and SEO and reduce the imposition of the United States and its allies. This is a powerful political drive to draw them closer. Fourth, cooperation on global issues. China and India are two of the world's three largest CO2 emitters, often criticized by the West. If united, they could protect development interests by stressing historical responsibility and per capita averages while reducing financial pressure from climate commitments. Fifth, a 2,000-year historical foundation. Both civilizations were once connected through the Silk Road, where Chinese silk and Indian spices reached the world. This historical memory suggests an Asian century in which the world's largest factory joins hands with the largest democracy to form a new order. Although there are many incentives for cooperation in reality, major barriers still exist. This leads to the question, why is the India-China relationship so hard to become a full friendship? First, historical mistrust. India-China ties collapsed after the 1962 border war, leaving unhealed wounds. The Galwan clash in 2020, when 20 Indian soldiers died, deepened the distrust. In addition, Beijing's long support for Pakistan makes New Delhi find it hard to see China as a reliable partner. Second, cybersecurity and technology risks. Many fake loan apps of Chinese origin once caused scandals in India, leading to data leaks and extortion. Suspicion rose even higher when the COVID-19 pandemic was said to have originated in Wuhan, reinforcing the belief that China could create non-traditional threats. Third, trade imbalance. India runs a huge trade deficit, relying on up to 70% of pharmaceutical ingredients, 40% of electronic devices, and 90% of solar panels from China. This gives Beijing a clear economic lever, and any conflict could quickly turn into a tool of pressure against New Delhi. Fourth, territorial and water disputes. China claims Ladakh and the whole of Arunachal Pradesh, while building many dams on the Brahmaputra River, a vital lifeline for India. Any changes in water flow could turn into a water weapon, creating major risks for regional security. Fifth, ideological differences. India is the world's largest democracy, while China follows a centralized authoritarian regime. In New Delhi, power changes through elections and the press operates freely. In Beijing, everything is in the hands of the Communist Party. This ideological gap makes the two neighbors separated by an invisible wall. Alongside potential benefits, there remain major barriers from history, security, economy, territory to ideology. This is why the India-China relationship, despite opportunities for cooperation, struggles to go far and always carries the risk of fracture. Yet India has never wanted to become a satellite of any superpower. New Delhi continues to maintain Quad and military cooperation with the US, Japan, and Australia while keeping dialogue with Beijing to cool border tensions. In other words, India may shake hands, but finds it hard to hold tight to China. The closeness between India and China is not only the biggest challenge to Trump's Asia strategy, but could also create a regional strategic turning point. If these two powers continue moving closer over the next 5 years, Asia could witness the greatest power shift since World War II. And the United States will have to adapt to a new order that Washington once believed it controlled. If New Delhi holds Beijing's hand, will Washington's China plus one strategy turn into China plus India equals infinity? What do you think? Leave your opinion in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to keep following our in-depth yet simple geopolitical analysis.